Which doesn't say much anyway.
Call to order the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. If I could get a roll call, please.
Gesme.
Here.
Grote.
Here.
Jepson. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Cronenberger.
Here.
Lindell.
Here.
Montgomery.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could get an approval of our amended agenda that's been handed out.
So moved.
Motion by Jepson. Do I have a second? Second from Gesme. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That leads us to public input. Public input is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the City Council. The public input will be no longer than 30 minutes in total length, and each speaker will have no more than 3 minutes to speak. Speakers may address topics relevant to the governance of the city. Speakers must sign up in advance and must provide their name, address, and the topic they intend to address. Comments must be on topic, respectful, pertinent to city business, and adhere to the applicable data privacy rules. Any speaker that violates these rules will be asked to sit down, and if the speaker refuses to comply, they may be removed from the meeting. Speakers shall not address topics that are the subject of a public hearing. All such comments shall be made at the public hearing. The City Council will not generally act on issues raised by the public input, but may choose to schedule consideration of the item on a future agenda. Mr. O'Gorman.
I don't know if that's working. Is
Yeah,
it?
it's on.
Thank you. Quite some time ago, I put in a data request about Project Tulip. To my knowledge, it hasn't been discussed at any public meeting, and I don't know that you guys have gotten any information, but when I made that request, this is what I got. Well, after reading it, I could tell it was less than complete. So I challenged the data, and then this is what I got. So I got all this data, and I'm wondering what you folks have. And to my knowledge, it's very little or none, probably none, and it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if you're aware that somebody made some kind of a decision to like double your industrial park. That's double the size of it. Double the water use in town. That means of all the water you use, that much is going to be used again on this particular project, which I assume would double your wastewater. Don't you think you folks should know something about what's going on around here? Now, I brought it up and I've intentionally waited to see if somebody would come forth and maybe ask the administrator to share the information with you. I don't know why he hasn't, and I don't for the life of me know why nobody's made that request. And if you would like, I will share this information with you at no charge. Thank you for your time.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be adopted under one motion as presented or may be removed for discussion and resolution as council business. Before we get in that, item E has already been pulled down. That is going to be item A in council business. So we'll go through. Item A, just and correct claims for the accounting period that ended on October 12th, 2023. Item B, meeting minutes for October 3rd, 2023 City Council meeting. Item C, Resolution 2707, accepting a monetary donation of $8,200 from the Cannon Falls Fire Department Relief Association to the Fire Department. Item D, Resolution 2708, designating polling places for the City of Cannon Falls. Skip down to item E, approve voting operations, technology, and election municipality agreement with Goodhue County. Item F, approve Timber Ridge Early Model Home Permit Agreement. Item G, Resolution 2709, accepting a monetary donation of $615 from Melanie Carlson to the Parks Department. Item H, approve trade and purchase of John Deere 325G compact track loader. Item I, approve hire of unscheduled part-time employee Jay Crouch to the ambulance department. Item J, approve disposal of items from the ambulance department. Item K, approve the LELS union contract for the police officers. Item L, approve hire of full-time paramedic A. Hunt. Is there anything the council would like to pull down? Hearing none, I would take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Lundell,
Second.
second from Ms. Grote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Bringing us to council business. Item A tonight was item E that we skipped over. So the second reading and adoption of ordinance 398, an ordinance of the city of Cannon Falls, Minnesota, authorizing the sale of property. And you guys should have a printout if Neil wants to walk us through it.
Yeah, this is the purchase agreement for the old Sandstone Ridge, now Timber Ridge development. Back in September, we approved the purchase agreement. At that time, the first edition of the Timber Ridge project was 21 lots. They have now reduced that back when their final plat to 15. And there's a timeline that has to get done in the purchase agreement. And so we want that to match. In the purchase agreement, it's got 21. We want it to match the first addition to 15. That's in sections 27 through 29. And then since the old sandstone area has to be replatted, we want some assurances that Sandstone Road, if the development never comes to fruition or something is stalled and delayed, that we have an opportunity to get Cedar Hills out to 25. So if the construction of the street is not completed from Bluff Drive to Decorah on the backside of his preliminary plat, that the owner will convey a public street right-of-way on the south 66 feet of Outlot B. That's the old sandstone in the plat. That's, and then we have sewer and water that run down the old sandstone road, and they don't have a utility easement drafted on the outlot yet, so we would like to have that assurance too also, that there's a utility easement running down that street on Outlot B. So if I could get a motion to amend that so it matches the first edition, and that we have some assurances that if the development doesn't come to fruition, that we have some way to get Cedar Hills back out to 25.
Questions or discussion from the council? Go ahead.
Is there a reason we are reducing it from 21 to 15?
It matches the first edition. The first edition was 21 lots, but when they did the final plat, it went back to 15. So the second edition hasn't even been started yet.
This still includes those little townhouses?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There's 7 there, and then the cul-de-sac
Okay.
is 8. Them are the 15 lots.
Any other questions or discussion from the council? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the amended purchase agreement. And the
Do we
rest,
have to first amend it, Matt, or do we just go into?
do we need to amend it or just with the,
With this motion, it will, and then we'll have Shelley put it into the purchase agreement.
okay.
Yeah.
So the information that we needed has been presented to us, that will be included. So I would entertain a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of ordinance 398.
So moved.
Motion from Diane, second from Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Brings us to item B, the Oak Point Inc. proposal. Tim, this is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The ambulance service over the years has been pretty successful maintaining a profit margin so we could continue on operations, paying our staff, building funds to purchase capital over the years. And as the inflation continues to increase and the cost of everything is going up, that margin's getting smaller and smaller. And before we hit a critical point, there's stuff like I outlined in the memo about work comp and different insurances that we can't control, and the cost of reimbursements continue to drop a little bit. And so before we get to a point where we are struggling and trying to figure out what to do, we would like to hire Oak Point Incorporated to come in, do an analysis of what we're doing, gather some data, see if our billing is where it needs to be. We feel like it is, but it's good to have another set of eyes, and through that, just build what we see as the current needs and the future needs of the ambulance service. And then we'd look into funding opportunities that we could pursue. And really just to start having conversations not only with the city of Cannon Falls, but the Cannon Falls Ambulance Service covers multiple townships. It also covers the city of Hampton, New Trier, and just trying to start working with those partners, educating them about the needs of what it costs for an ambulance service. And maybe at some point down the road, we look at partnering with them and looking for funding opportunities.
Questions, discussion from the council for Tim? Roughly, what do we think this is going to cost, and then when would the door be open for contractual talks with, say, local townships, if that were to?
He has a pretty aggressive timeline. He thinks we could probably get this started after the first year, maybe start having some contract negotiations or just actually educating our townships what the cost is going to be. He thinks it's going to be about $8,500, and depending on how many more meetings we'll want and everything else. He's very well versed with working with ambulance services. He's been successful getting other townships to agree on different funding strategies for their ambulance services.
Do townships have organizations of grouping similar to what they do with the fire department when it comes to emergency medical service?
It is scattered throughout the state. The closest one, though, that has a system like we think we might end up with would be Zimbrota.
How beneficial do you think something like this would be for our community?
Tremendous. Also, I think it gives us opportunities to not be, especially like Sue and I, we have very limited full-time staffing, and part of that's because of the funds, and we really rely heavily on the burdens of our volunteers to pick up that slack. And there is days where Sue or myself or other full-time staff are putting in long hours just to make sure we have an ambulance in service. So that would help give us some leverage to be able to fund some more paid positions.
Any other questions or discussion from the council? Your thoughts on the Oak Point Inc. proposal?
I think it makes sense, but is this in the current budget, or where would this money come from?
Where would this?
It's coming from the ambulance.
Oh, it's coming from the EMS.
From their budget? Okay. In the 2024 budget?
Well, I suppose part of it'll be 23, part of it'll be 24, because it's.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
We met with these guys on Zoom, or this guy on Zoom, Matt and Derek and I, Finance Committee, and it was very informative.
And I was going to say, I think what's so sad is that, Medicare, Medicaid, and they have not caught up with the actual cost of the ambulance. And we certainly appreciate having you all in our town.
Yeah, and they are in a process of having all ambulance services report data, and we did that, and that was many hours of reporting that we did. The hope is within the next couple of years, they'll realize how much they're underfunding us and that they'll increase reimbursement, but we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, if no further questions or discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the Oak Point Inc. proposal.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Jepson.
I'll second.
Second from Lisa. All those in favor?
Well,
Did you have something else you'd like to say?
Well, we really haven't nailed down a bid from him, right? Or are we?
It's on the back, I think it's the last page.
Hours of service and cost is
I
included in there.
completely missed that.
Yep.
It's on page 3 of his proposal.
Sorry, I didn't go down far enough.
It's all right. Is there any other questions or discussion? So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Moving us to item C, Resolution 2710, receiving preliminary report and calling for public hearing on 72nd Avenue Way improvements. Mr. Angerman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, in your packet is a feasibility report for finishing the construction of 72nd Avenue Way. Also is the resolution, Mayor, as you mentioned, which sets in process, or potentially sets in process tonight, depending upon your approval, basically the public hearing and the process we must follow. What we want to take a little bit of time with is this report, and what we were doing was reviewed by the Finance Committee. Now, typically, this would not go to the Finance Committee, this would go to the Public Works Committee, and that's probably the main part of our discussion tonight is, in and of itself, what this report does, it lays out the normal things, existing conditions, proposed conditions, permit construction, that's all fairly standard. The standard part is we have a gravel road, which is not up to city standard. That city standard is we would pave it. City standard is we would install curb and gutter. Utilities are already installed, so utilities being sewer, water, we would add some storm sewer. That's all pretty routine. The non-routine part is that we have 6 lots on the east side. We have 3 on the west side. We have large lots, which means we end up with large assessment amounts. Your policy is that 100% of improvements are assessed, okay? So that means if you have a gravel road, in essence, I think Neil and I, we call it you pay for it the first time. So when you build a lot, you pay for the sewer, the water, the storm sewer, the road, the curb and gutter, and you pay for 100%, and it's built into your lot cost. So when we have projects that are partially built, 100% results in large dollar amounts, and that's what we wanted to go back to the Finance Committee and we talked through. So we spent a fairly long time talking through, all right, how these assessments, some of them are as high as nearly $60,000. The lower end ones were, around $20,000. Those are large amounts. Even if we do what we normally do, which is we offer citizens to, pay that back over 10 years, you can extend that. You set that term. It could be 15 years. You set the interest rate. So there are some things. But we really focused on, do we want to look at our policy? Do we want to modify the policy? And by the way, I'm speaking for the Finance Committee, so feel free, Matt and Steve and Derek, to jump in. And our conclusion that night was, really tonight what we're going to do is we're going to set this process in motion. I'll just recap real briefly. What that means is if we do approve this resolution, we will come back November 21st. We will have a public hearing. So at that point, the people that live on 72nd Avenue Way will be aware of the assessments. They'll know this is, and then they get to give their input to the city council to proceed or not. And that's what we historically call the thumbs up or thumbs down. Do we want to move ahead with design and then prepare ourselves to bid this project in the spring? Okay? If we set that project or process in motion, that requires a supermajority of the city council. And then what we talked with the Finance Committee is, depending upon what we heard that night, depending upon the wishes of the council, we can revisit, if we want to, our assessment policy. We can leave it as is. But in essence, we have until we bid the project in the spring, and ultimately till the final assessment hearing, which we're projecting would be in April. Okay, you have until that time to modify it, or you could leave it be. So what we felt was prudent from the Finance Committee was to set this ball in motion, receive the public input, receive input from the council, and then after that November meeting, decide if if the staff would be directed to look at alternatives or options. So that's the short version of that. So I don't know, Derek or Steve or Matt, if you guys have anything more to add, or obviously entertain questions too.
Our biggest issue, and Derek and I agree, and maybe we've talked a little bit about it. It's very expensive. It's going to be very expensive, and we just got to figure out a way to get this worked out so it's not painful, or not as painful as it appears to be. I think we got a little more discussion to go through before we can, we did discuss some options, just tossing it around there, but never really came to any hard way of doing it.
Right. I think our discussion, we're extremely sympathetic to our citizens. I feel bad that the situation was not fixed when they were annexed into the city, and that the fact that road has existed as a gravel road within our city limits, that problem should have been taken care of, so that it doesn't fall years down the road and more expensive. However, I feel like the rules have to be followed, but how do we try to be as creative to ease the burden, whether it be longer terms on the loan, whether it be lower interest rates? Because we got to remember too, this is a two-way street of, yes, it's 100% assessment on a new construction. Hopefully property values will go up with the paved road and the drain, curb and gutter, and also that it's leading to hardwood estates. We would hope that people's property values will increase. However, hearing that doesn't necessarily make it seem any more palatable to get a $20,000 to $60,000 bill. So, discussion, questions from the council. Go ahead.
I understand that we want to follow rules. When the city hasn't followed rules, we should never have allowed the 6 houses to be built without the road being paved. Those permits should not have been given. We don't allow developers to come in and do things without having the road in place. It was city property in the city limits. And, then I go way, way back and say the 3 original homes never asked to be part of the city. They just got to be, which there again, so I just want to say, to make things right, and especially as we can say they'll have increased property value, but if you lose your house to foreclosure because you can't pay the property tax, you're going to take a huge loss, and that's going to go on your record. And I know we keep saying we're going to kick the bucket down the road on terms of how we're going to finance that, but there's a part of me that says if we do any more than they pay 20% like a normal type thing, I think we're being incredibly unfair to people who basically got taken for a ride because we didn't follow our own ordinances at the time we gave them the permit to build the house.
How long have those houses been there?
The earliest I think.
First one was 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everything else has been 1920, 21.
Yeah.
It's recent.
Okay.
The ordinance was there
I
that,
think the development was built in 16.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in there.
Yep.
So then they put up the house right away.
The school did.
yeah, so the first one was kind of like a model house. But the rest of them, it's, there was no excuse for us not saying, before we start building, you need to have that road done. And we didn't. And so I want to say, that's our part of the problem too, in all fairness. And I don't think the people who now own those, especially the 6 homes, should bear this kind of a burden.
I agree with you. The counterpoint to that is, but also their lots and houses were cheaper to build because they weren't assessed a finished road. So those lots and houses were built at a lower cost than one that would be somewhere like any of the new developments. They pay for it in the cost of the lot. That's all baked into the cost, whereas with these, it was not.
Which is, if I was coming in to look at buying property in a house, and that would have affected my decision whether or not to buy if the road was put there in the original price. If you look at people and they say, wow, I can do this, I am not going to have a lot of money extra here, but I can do this. And then, 2 years later, it's like, oh, by the way, you owe a whole lot more. That's not planning. That's going to knock people for a loop. You know, when you go in to buy, it's kind of like, you know, the underwater housing disaster we went through back in what, '08 or whatever. If you know up front what the cost is, you can decide whether or not you can afford it. If you don't know, if you think you know what the cost is, and then 2 or 3 years later, all of a sudden you get hit with a biggie, you didn't have any way to foresee that. And I don't know how easy it is, because I know I actually looked at one of the homes out there, not the new ones, but the other ones, and I don't remember anybody saying anything about you're going to have to eventually pay for the road. Maybe that would have been in the fine print.
I don't know if that was communicated to the homeowners either.
I did speak with one of them today, and they said they were never told anything about potential assessments down the road. And they agreed that these numbers, they just said there's no way we could ever pay these numbers, these amounts. I do agree it needs to be done.
Yeah.
But how do we do that? You know, I know at the finance committee, I maybe got a little too worked up about these costs, because I just try to think, you know, if that was me, and all of a sudden I get a letter from the city, hey, you got to pay $20,000, $40,000, $60,000, I'd be like, what the hell?
Mhm.
So we got to try and find a way to make it work that's fair.
One thing
and
you gotta
affordable.
watch also, and Matt, you alluded to it, is that all the other lots in town that was, you know, built in, like when people start buying lots at Hardwood Estates, their purchase price is gonna include the cost of that road out in front of their streets. And it's gonna be in the one lump number instead of paying for this part now and this part later, which maybe wasn't communicated well enough to the purchasers. Plus the people that have been there for quite a few number of years, that have been living there that way forever. So we got to try to sell it to every one of them.
There's a part of me that feels, in all fairness, because, and, you know, we can't go back and undo things that happened 40 years ago, or even 5 years ago, 3 years ago. I would be more comfortable saying, let's do it like we would a Korean's mill and overlay, and say 20% on the homeowners and 80% the city covers, as kind of our admission that we weren't very clear when this all happened.
Bill, looked like you were.
Well, I think tonight you don't have to decide anything. You just have to set the public hearing. But I think it helps Neil and I hearing your input, because as we are thinking about options, 'cause that's one of the things the finance committee said was, hey, you guys meet, think of choices, think of options. The other thing, our job is to present pros and cons. You know, we had a fairly lengthy pro, and Diane, you were in the crowd. We had a fairly lengthy pro and con discussion. And by the way, I'm not taking a position. I'm just going to throw out a con to the pro. Okay, the con was we charge less than 100%. We charge 20%. Pick your number. And now we've made that property more valuable, and then someone sells it right away and makes a profit, a bigger profit, because we did the project. Okay, but then the flip side to that is, well, what happens if they can't afford all the things that you guys have talked about? Hence the reason why we went to the finance committee, because we recognize this. We look at this and say, this is a very large assessment. You don't even see assessments this large, because rarely do you ever have to go in and complete a project. You know, and fortunately, none of us were here. We weren't a part of those decisions. I don't even think we know the whole history. But I think the reality is we're gonna come up with some choices. We don't know what those are, because ultimately you may decide, well, we don't know what you're going to decide. You may decide to leave it. You may decide to reduce it. But no matter what you do, we're going to need to amend if you leave it, we don't have to do anything. But most likely we're going to need to amend the policy. You know, so that's all.
Well, I think today, I mean, we're not going to make a decision on the policy or how to pay for it today. But I do think, even though I think these numbers are way too high, we do need to move this process forward so we can discuss, you know, what we're going to do. Right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, and I think we had talked about that too, is the cost of the project. If we kick the can down the road, that has the potential of increasing as well. So what might already feel like some sticker shock would only increase. So trying to be creative and if that means the city contributes, but we've said that the pros and cons, the double-edged sword of if we try to be equitable or fair, what would the other residents say that paid full for their lot and their development? And I think this is a rough situation. We will try to be as equitable and sympathetic as possible, but at the end of the day, the project, I think that it is the better move for the project to get done rather than to change the rule from mistakes made in the past. But like they said, we are not going through all the details tonight. Tonight is the decision to push it forward. That would lead to the public hearing on November 21st at that council meeting. So more question and discussion is definitely welcome if people have some.
Matt, if I could just add one thing, just one of the questions the Finance Committee asked is, what are the statute rules as far as changing the amount? And when you notice a hearing, you give out an amount, you can change it. You can raise it, you can lower it. There is no limitation. So between now and April, you can lower that, and that is allowed by statute. You would just have to amend your policy. So you do have that flexibility. So in essence, though, at that hearing on the 21st, you are not committing to a dollar amount. What you're committing to is you're moving forward with the project. That's all you're committing to.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Can I just make sure that I understand this correctly for those who don't understand construction? So the 3 houses on the west were annexed into the city, already built. And at that time, who knows why we annexed it, but at that time, we didn't make them come up to code? Is that a true statement?
Yeah, we believe so, yeah.
It had to be because it's not.
Right.
That's a lot
So
of
someone
previous-
just failed to act upon,
Well, what year, do we know in the records when the annexation happened?
They did put sewer and water down that road, so the 3 homes on the west side, they did hook up.
yep.
So everybody's hooked up to sewer and water. They
Did
just,
they get assessed on that?
Yes,
correct.
Both sides? Or are we just talking about the 3?
no, everybody.
Every,
Okay.
Well,
We're all on
the
city
3
sewer.
did, and then the developer put in, I would imagine, put in the sewer and water.
Okay.
I mean, even on the
On the east side, I
whole,
think,
that whole square, everybody's got sewer and water and have
oh,
been assessed.
71st Street you're
Yes.
talking about, yeah.
Then fast forward, a developer bought and sold the additional homes, and these homes were given permits, and it was never discussed that this road would need to be paved.
I don't know what they talked about.
I'm just asking for clarification, I'm not,
And I can't answer because I don't know what they talked about when the developer came in and to the council and says, I want to put up houses. Because they started prior to Bill and I getting on board here, and I guess that's how it went down. I don't know. You would have thought that would have been one whole project, just like we would do with any other, put the sewer and the water in and streets and the curb go on top and you're all done. So that it was probably never an intention to put the road in because it never got done. So they must have agreed to that back, whatever, 16 or whenever it was, 15, 16, whenever the planning was going on. And I don't know why they annexed that in. It probably was for when the developer wanted to develop that 40 acres back then. I would imagine that's why that happened. I don't know.
because that was also annexed into the city, that was also annexed into the city limits at the same time, wasn't it?
Sarah said some of the septics were failing, so
No.
they requested. Yeah. So,
I'm assuming that ultimately Port Little 71st Street is also going to face the same challenge.
someday.
So we're saying that as of tonight, we just start the process in terms of declaring the public hearing or setting the public hearing so that property owners can be officially notified and have their heart attack and then come to the meeting. And we're not actually deciding on a number in terms of, this could be worst-case scenario in terms of how much each one would owe, plus or minus whatever the actual construction costs are. But we still, as a city council, have the right to say we can change that formula based on who pays how much, what percentage.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2710.
I'll make that a motion.
Motion from Mr. Gesme,
I'll second.
second from Ms. Grote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us to reports. Let's start with the Chamber of Commerce. Maggie.
Good evening, Chamber, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to start by thanking all of the businesses that participated in the Scarecrows in the Street this fall. We had a fantastic turnout. We had 21 different businesses participate. So thank you to them. Cannon Auto Repair took home the prize. They basically get bragging rights for the next year. So thank you to them, and then the community members who voted on those as well. And thank you, just a quick thank you to our Public Works Department for all of the hard work you guys do with the flowers every year. It's appreciated. And I also wanted to point out the new park and trail signs at some of the parks downtown and at city parking lot. I noticed they just finished the trail sign. They look fantastic, so thank you to all the boards and the trail and the city who had a part in that. Just a couple upcoming events here. This weekend, the Cannon Valley Senior Center is putting on a concert with the White Sidewalls. So this is a fundraiser for the Cannon Valley Senior Center. Tickets can be found online through a board member or at the Cannon Valley Senior Center. And, I don't have that written down.
I couldn't find it.
I know it's at the high school auditorium. If you look on the Chamber's webpage on the community calendar, it should be on there. November 4th, there are 3 different craft fairs going on in town, the Grand O2, the Cannon Falls Library, and the Vesa Lutheran Center. Again, all these events are found on the Chamber's website. And Halloween is coming up. There are a ton of events going on in town for Halloween. The first one starts this Friday night. Create Sunshine is putting on a movie night at 6:30 p.m. at their shop. And then obviously next Friday is the Chamber's Trick or Treat Trot. That is from 3 to 5 p.m. downtown, so Mill Street, Main Street, and 4th Street. We're encouraging all participants to walk in one direction to help with the flow. And then that night, there's multiple trunk or treats, and then following into the next week, there's a lot of Halloween events going on also. So those, again, can be found on the Chamber website or on our Facebook page. And Deck the Falls, save the date. That date is November 25th. The day will start with pancakes. Then we have Santa visits at a couple different places, the parade, and then the fireworks. Parade forms are not officially out yet. I do have them created. I just need to get them sent out. So we welcome anybody to be a part of the parade, any sort of parade unit. It's free to be a part of the parade. And as always, we're open to sponsorships for fireworks. So if you're interested in that, contact the Chamber. And one last thing, the Chamber is hosting a Sick and Safe Leave seminar regarding the new sick and safe legislation here at City Chambers on November 1st. This is a free event, so I would encourage anybody who this might relate to attend. So that is all. If there are any questions. All right,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thanks, Maggie.
The EDA met on October 5th. Laura is not here tonight. I believe the EDA was mostly Hardwood Estates updates on the project. Park Board also met on October 5th. You were, all right, we'll skip over Park Board. Is there anything from Park Board you'd like to share, Jed?
What did we have? We just talked about the donation for another park bench up for Hannah's band.
Great. Public Works Commission met the same day, October 5th. Who's my
It
Public
was
Works?
just on the consent agenda, trading in
Moratorium.
that machine.
Got it. That machine.
The track skid
The
steer.
John Deere?
Yeah, the tractor.
All right. Finance Committee, we met mostly talking about Resolution 2710, the project there for paving on 72nd Avenue Way. Library Board, October 9th.
I wasn't able to make that one.
Absent? All right. Let's work on our attendance, everybody. Planning Commission, same day. We got to have some reports here.
Planning Commission, Diane?
Planning Commission,
One of the things was, we discussed the ongoing moratorium issues on the former nursing home. And the first thing we discussed was something that Neil's gonna tell me, but because I can't think of it. We had two things that night. I didn't bring my notes.
Probably
Well.
Ingress. Trying to think.
I'm glad you had discussion about the nursing home.
And that was actually quite lively.
Okay, all right. We'll go around the horn with department heads. Jed, is there anything Public Works that you'd like to report?
Just a couple things I want to touch on. I've had a couple dirty water complaints. We are still flushing hydrants the next, probably finish up next week. So that explains, if you have yellow water, that's the reason why. Also, we will be hauling biosolids at the end of the month. So we'll have a tanker truck going from the waste plant out to the field to biosolids. So especially on Cannon River Avenue, just beware that we're going to have some big trucks going through town.
All right, thank you. Bill?
I thought Jed may hit on the lift station, and the pipe under the river project is nearing completion. So everything's in. Now, it won't be operational until next year when we actually have some pipes connected to it. But everything proceeded. We had some hiccups there. I think I mentioned at the last meeting getting under the river. So everything ended, all's well that ends well.
We haven't discussed this, but is the bridge going to come down?
The bridge is going to come
The
down.
old bridge is coming down.
Yep.
Great.
So the bridge is coming down. That pier in the middle, we're leaving for now, and because it's fairly expensive to remove, and
Sure.
hopefully maybe we can get some grant dollars in the future to take that out. So,
Great.
Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Tim, anything you'd like to share?
Just fall's our busy time. We start really kicking off training, so we've been doing a bunch of training stuff. And our staff will be getting geared up to get all the renewals done. So I just really have great compliments from my staff, especially the big influx of new people coming aboard and training. And it's been really great to have some fresh blood that's challenging us to think and do things. And so I'm very thankful for your guys' support and getting those people onboarded.
Thanks, Tim. Chief, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, Maggie talked about the Trick or Trot. That'll be on October 27th from 3 to 5. They follow a single direction route. We try to utilize the lights to minimize the impact on traffic, but there inevitably is going to be some delay for people coming through those intersections, either the semaphore intersection or the Mill Street at 4th Street intersection on that day between those hours. And we just ask that people be patient. Kids enjoy that time, and we want to make sure that they can cross safely. Second thing, you talked about the nursing home moratorium. Obviously, since the nursing home closed in March, it's been a location that we've been keeping an extra eye on. Initially, they had somebody locally that was helping close the facility down. That no longer is the case. They're still maintaining it in the context of electricity and water and that type of stuff. But we've had some vandalism to the building, and we have not had any response back from ownership. So we've been having some conversations with the city attorney, and she advised me this afternoon that she is requesting that the council make a motion to hold a hearing at our next council meeting and to discuss that property, and two, within that motion, direct the city attorney to send written notice of the hearing to the owner of the property. It's not a public hearing, just a hearing. And the purpose of that is for the council to be able to, hear the information relative to that property so that you could make a decision if it was necessary, based on her recommendations and your judgment, to declare that property a nuisance property so that the city can move forward with any abatement that is necessary.
Does that have to be a separate work session, or can it be included in
Nope,
the agenda?
it would need to be an action item within the next meeting.
Okay.
And Neil and I discussed this earlier, and Shelley would come for that meeting so that, she's here and can advise you on the steps. These are long, lengthy processes to begin with, and if we kick this down the road, we've got some things that we need to do on that property if they're not going to do it, and this gets that ball rolling. So I'd be looking for a motion from council to direct a hearing at the first meeting in November, and then also to direct the city attorney to notice the owners of said meeting, or hearing, excuse me.
Do we have a motion from the council?
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Derek, second from Diane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That will be included in the agenda for November 7th.
Jeff, do you know if they're still running heat in there? Or they
The
are?
last
Okay.
time that we were up there to do a check when it was found open, it was incredibly hot.
Okay.
So I'm going to assume they do.
All right. I just worry with the weather getting cold if they're not running heat, so. but-
Yep, and that's some of the other reason for why she's recommended that we just continue to move forward with this.
Okay.
Thank you,
I
Chief.
did tell the Public Works to go find the shut-off for the water, just in case something goes wrong
Yep.
and we end up with water running out the front door. So
Good idea.
hopefully they got that marked. They were going to look and make sure the valve worked, and so we didn't have to mess around too long with getting it shut down.
Okay, good.
Are the owners from out of state?
It's hard to truly determine. It operates under an LLC that operates several operations out of the same address.
Okay.
So, Shelley, that was one of the things that Shelley was working on, was trying to establish who actually is
Actually paid
the
down.
ownership.
Okay.
Anything else, Chief?
No. Thank you very much for the motion, and Neil and I will work with the city attorney on this matter.
Thank you. Sarah? All right. Neil?
A couple items. The other thing that Steve was thinking about was the ordinance for the individual well and septic got moved to, actually, a hearing will be on the 7th of November,
Okay.
public hearing.
Okay.
Second thing is, I don't know if, Bill, you want to touch a little bit on this, but we've been testing for PFAS, and we've came in a little high. We're setting up some meetings, and it's going to get interesting to see how this turns out. Everybody understand what it's called, the forever chemical, and select cities in the state were mandated, I would say,
Correct.
to be testing. And we ran 2 tests now, and they came in, and we got to run 2 more first quarter of '24 and third quarter of '24, correct? And so there'll be more to come on this, but we're meeting with the PCA next week, I believe, and we'll be updating you as time progresses.
Is that coming from all of our wells or just certain ones?
So just to clarify, this is just in the wastewater. We're assuming
Yeah.
there potentially is an industry that's dumping something that's why it's high. As far as we know, it is not in the drinking water.
So more to come.
All right. Thank you, Neil. That's it. Council, Laura, we'll start with you. Anything?
I'm good.
Lisa?
Nothing.
Ryan?
Cool, parking lot looks good.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Good, good.
That's it.
Thank you. Derek?
I don't know if you were going to take this or not. I'll just do it. I had the idea of us starting next year combining the Public Works and Parks committees, since Parks is kind of already under Public Works and it's just one less meeting. My thought would be just Public Works just takes over the Parks things. I don't know what the process of that would be. I've talked with Matt about it a little bit. I'm not sure.
I think we would probably put that on a future agenda as an item. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, so I don't know. It's something we can discuss at one of the next meetings if everyone wants to do that.
Perfect.
Other than that, nothing
I
else.
would imagine that's an ordinance, because they're all under ordinances. Would have to
Yep.
somehow cancel out one or two and then create a new one.
Okay,
All right.
that's all.
Thanks, Derek. Diane? Nothing. Steve?
Me too.
All right. Football season. Tomorrow night, MEA weekend. Wednesday night, last home game here at John Birch Park before the playoffs, so regular season will be done. Playoffs will either be Tuesday or Saturday the following week, so go Bombers. Let's see if we can make it to the Dome. Even though it's not the Dome, we still say the Dome. Anything else? I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Ryan. Second from Derek. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.